Hi, I'm having some trouble with my setup today. I'm wondering if people can see and hear me. I wasn't able to go live to LinkedIn, so I've had to go direct to YouTube only. So sorry to the people on LinkedIn who might be missing this. But if you're watching on YouTube, I hope you can let me know if you can see or hear me because this has been 11 minutes of terror where my system just would not get started. So hopefully, people can tell me if they can see and hear me. So, welcome. Hopefully, you are here live for the Tuesday weekly Ask Me Anything. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and every Tuesday I take your questions. And ahead of time, through deltacx.com/links, I already got a bunch of questions, which we are going to start with. Hooray! I see Ana Lucia says hello, everyone. Things are not going to come up on the screen today because my system is not working, but I am keeping an eye on the YouTube chat. So hello to Ana Lucia. And just a reminder to everybody to check for our live events at cxcc.to/events. Subscribe to the YouTube channel since sometimes I can't go live on LinkedIn like today. So great reason to stay subscribed here. And of course, thanks as always to all of our Patreon members, past, present, and future. You know, we have people who are upgrading, we have people who are downgrading. Everybody's financial situation is different, and we absolutely welcome everybody to the Patreon, especially at the free level. Thank you for those who are financially supporting me a little bit, but I'm just happy to see people joining, even if it is not at the paid level. So thanks to everybody who's a part of it, and I hope you'll stay involved. Ana Lucia says, I was wondering if something's happening. You're always on time. Yeah, I pressed the button on time and I got an error message and I freaked out. So I've spent the last 11 minutes trying to fix it, but don't worry, we will still do our office hours. And a quick reminder that I am working on a new mastermind and support group. We've got 47 people in there already, and you can join too. Check it out at cxcc.to/support-group. It is still in soft launch phase, but we still hope to see y'all there. All right, so let's get some questions up and waste no more time because we've got lots of questions today. What is this number 2? Oh, yeah, the number 2 is the show countdown time. All right, number 4. Here we go. So we have a couple of questions that came in last week when we had Dr. Nick on, and unfortunately, I didn't see them until the show ended, and I'm so sorry. I think it was Elena who asked them, so I'm going to answer them now. So the first question was, do you have any courses or resources on how to set yourself up as a contract UX researcher? She's in the UK. So I don't have any courses or any stuff that's specific to the UK, but over on the old Delta CX YouTube channel, which is our other YouTube channel, I did a whole bunch of shows about freelancing and contracting. We've got shows about why a contract is important. We have shows about what should your contract say in order to protect you? We have shows about, I think we have a little bit about pricing. We have a little bit about how I do planning and project management. So I'm not qualified to tell you how to set up contracting in the UK because my expertise is not going to be law or accounting or business entities in the UK, but you can certainly get some ideas from those videos. So I would say head on over to YouTube. And in the search, put Delta CX and then try all different words like contracts and freelancing and contractor and contracting and see what comes up because there should be a lot of stuff there. Thank you for that. And then she had a follow-up question, which unfortunately I didn't see at the time. Excuse me either. So I will copy and paste that here. And this was in response to something that Dr. Nick was saying last week, which was, hey, maybe you shouldn't be a contractor until you've done UX for a few years, because very often contractors are dropped into jobs. We don't necessarily get support and work reviews and all of that. We're expected to be kind of like hired experts, and so Nick's recommendation was not to be a contractor or freelancer in the earlier part of your career. And so the question was, do you think that's also true for research? Should you work at a regular job 4 to 5 years before contracting? I think that ultimately people can be a contractor whenever they want. They just have to remember that it might come with little or no support. We used to hear a lot of, and I even have videos on it, oh, hey, if you're starting a UX career, you should just start as a freelancer. Just start right out doing freelance work. And what I've tried to explain to everybody for years is freelancers are typically seen as experts who kind of come in at the last minute and fix everybody's problems and make amazing things happen and don't necessarily need a lot of support. And so the problem is if you come in as a freelancer or contractor and it's your first UX job, you might not get the support you're expecting. So the same can be true for contractors, but you have to just check the job description. You have to check the nature of the job. If it is a more junior job, maybe they will give you some mentoring or coaching or check your work or things like that. But sometimes they don't invest in a contractor because a contractor is seen as a temporary worker. So you're not going to have budget to go to a conference. You might not get a lot of support and leadership and work reviews. Some people come to me for coaching around that. Plug. You can find my coaching link at deltacx.com/links. But that would be the downside of going into contracting or freelancing too early, is you may be in over your head with a client who expects you to already be an expert at something, and you wish you had somebody who can check your work. And hypothetically, that could be me. So it's not that I think there's a certain amount of time you need to have before you start contracting. I think you just have to feel like, when am I ready to throw myself into a situation where I might not get a lot of support or mentoring or coaching or work reviews? And very often, that's after a number of years of experience. So it's going to be different for different people. I can't say there's one rule, but I would say that's how to try to gauge it for yourself. All right, we got some long questions coming in this week, which is great. I love when people tell us their stories because these questions are anonymous, which means you can talk about your work and your situation, and even I don't know who you are. So let's take a look at this question that came in some days ago. It says, how do you gauge the UX maturity of a company from the outside? I'm a senior UX designer working in-house to redesign my company's B2B website. After 2 years in this role, I'm tired of usability getting deprioritized in favor of brand and marketing goals. I've advocated for UX as best as I can, and I've been documenting the trade-offs, but I've reached a point where I don't feel like I'm practicing UX anymore. I would rather leave this company, but I don't want to end up in the same situation. Any suggestions? Yeah, great question. So first of all, nothing stops you from applying while you work here. It's great to have the safety net of working there, even if it's not a dream job. If you have your eyes open at all, you probably know getting a job in UX is very hard right now. And it's not like the old days where if we didn't like a job, we could leave it, and within a couple of weeks, we had another job. Now people are going a year or more and not finding a UX job. So I think the first thing you have to ask yourself is there something else out there for me? And that's hard to know. So that's why I would say you can, don't rush to quit this job if it's not abusive to you. Obviously, if something's abusive, taking a toll on your mental health, then you have to take a look at, can you leave it even if you don't have the next job? But you can stay here and do your best, and you can also be applying. Now, how can you tell the UX maturity? Well, one of the things that I go by, and you can do this at your current job and your next job, is look very closely at the job description. Typically, there's some things in the job description that will give away what kind of job this is. Sometimes they will say, you will you will design based on product manager requirements or business analyst requirements. Okay, that's pretty telling. That sounds like we're not necessarily working from good user information or research. We might just be working from what these people wrote that this thing should do. And that's why you've got to ask some good questions during that interview process. We had a whole show on asking good questions during the interview process. I think it was episode 129. So you can go back and search YouTube for Delta CX 129. I think that was it. I think it was 129. So check for that. But ultimately, there are usually some hints in the job description. If the job description makes it sound like you're really going to get to delight users and you're going to make things that are really usable, then I would say if your current job description says that, you need to go to your manager and you need to say, this is what I signed up for. I signed up for the job that said, I'm really going to delight users. I'm really going to make things usable. Where I'm going to make sure that things meet the highest standards of blah, blah, blah. And hey, every time I tried to do something with good usability, or most of the time that I tried to do something with good usability, it's overruled because of something that marketing or brand wants. How can you help empower me to do what this job description says? I've had those conversations. They're awkward. And it does let your manager know that you're not happy with what's going on. But hopefully, you have a good manager where you can say that. Maybe you don't. But take a look at these job descriptions. And again, you can always ask in a job interview. Sometimes they'll say, hey, do you have any questions for us? And you can say, yeah, how am I see in the job description it says I'm going to use principles of human-centered design and user-centered design, and I'm going to really delight users and put them first and solve their problems. How am I empowered to do that? I think that's a fair question. How do you tend to empower your designers to make sure that they're really delighting users and creating something usable? So I think that we can't just tell maturity from the outside because most companies do not have good UX maturity. The real question is, are you going into an organization or team that has a level of maturity that you can stand? And can the job you're at now be salvaged? I don't know. So hopefully you can have a conversation with your manager and see if there's anything that you can do to hopefully be able to do the things that are in your job description, depending upon what's in your job description. But I think it could be a conversation worth having because sometimes the manager doesn't know. Sometimes the manager's like, I thought you were doing that. And then you're like, no. So hi to everybody watching live on YouTube. Sorry we didn't go live on LinkedIn today. I'm having some technical problems, which also means your questions aren't showing up on the screen. I see Brandon here. Brandon says, could you ask about the UX team makeup, like the size of a team compared to the company and designer to researcher ratio? I think you could, but that doesn't necessarily say anything. Even a company that has a lot of designers might not utilize them well, might not empower them. So I think we think that if they have more of them, they must be mature. And I think that's one of the downfalls of the Nielsen Norman maturity model, which I covered in my second book, Delta CX. But Delta CX is long. Don't go and read it. Customers know you suck is much better, but I don't talk about maturity there. But I think what's more important is trying to get at your job specifically, having conversations with it during a job interview process about how am I empowered to do this job? What does the company have in place to make sure that we have good usability, that things are accessible? Are there times when brand or marketing might overrule good usability because there's something they want to put on the website? How do we navigate those differences of opinion? I think a senior or higher should be able to ask those questions. Junior might look a little weird because it's like, hey, you're just kind of starting here. What you talking about, Willis? But I think if you're senior or higher, asking questions about process. How do we go about our projects? How do we determine what works best for our users? Do we prioritize what works best for users, or do we put business goals before what's usable or accessible? These sound right now to be probably a little too on the nose, a little too pointed, but you can hopefully think about what I've said and find a softer way to say these things. Okay, next question. Let's bring the font down a little bit because we're getting some long questions, but I promise I will read these out loud because they're even hard for me to see. All right, this one says, hi, I know it's not ideal, but I'm the only designer of my team of an enterprise platform, and it's under my responsibility to do both research and design tasks. Okay, so for everybody who thinks that someone should be both the researcher and the designer, listen up. Now, I have recently conducted some interviews with users of another platform that we need to integrate in our platform, mostly focusing on how they work, what they have to achieve, how they use this platform, and other tools as well. So now I've got quite a few pain points and opportunities that can inform my design, and I'm excited to make some concepts that will help these people do their job. I'm having fun exploring different ideas, but now I have to change hat again and actually start planning how to evaluate these ideas. Of course, I'm biased, and I quite like some of them, so I was wondering if you have some suggestions on how to distance yourself from your work and make sure to get good feedback. I know ideally it would be done by another person, but it's sadly not possible at the moment to have a researcher in our team. Another super question. Thank you so much to the person who asked it. These are anonymous. I have no idea who sent it in, but it's a really interesting question. So, to me, the core of this question is I have to be both the researcher and the designer. And now that I'm going to be designing and testing my designs, I kind of have some favorites. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping these test well. Uh-oh, I'm biased. How do I make sure I plan the testing or research or evaluative or usability test study so that I don't just green light my own work? So I think the first thing is to make sure that you tell yourself and that you believe that even if you hear negative things about the designs, even if you hear that people don't like things, don't let it get you down. Don't take it as a sign of failure. It is absolutely a success that you're finding this out early. If we found out after we released it that people didn't like it, yeah, that can feel like a failure. But when we find out early and we have the chance to fix it, to me, it's absolutely a success. So, thing one, it's absolutely a success to hear, this really doesn't make sense to me. And let's be completely clear here. I have usability tested things I've designed, and I found that people found mistakes I didn't even think of. So you definitely want to make sure that you're going into this saying, look, this isn't perfect. There's things I like about this, but it's not perfect. And I'm so lucky that I have these users who are going to help me find what doesn't make sense to them. Because something that works for me, or that I like, or that I think is going to be great for them and solve their problems, might not. I could be wrong. But the cool thing is, I'm about to find that out. And so I always go into these tests thinking that, not thinking, I hope they really like my idea. No, then you're way too biased, and I'm going to come over there and throw a grape at you because you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you are putting yourself in the mindset of, I don't know how this is going to go. This could test very well and it could test very poorly. Just because I like it doesn't mean it really works for these workers. And I don't do the tasks that they do every day. So there's probably something I've missed, or there might be something I've misunderstood. I am here open and ready to learn. And to me, that is the definition of the low ego action hero. You've got to come into this with low ego. And when people shoot holes in the designs, you don't take it as a slap to your ego. You say, this is so great that I found this out now and I can fix these things. And you show people the value of that testing. Now, one thing is, this is one of the few places in your life where I allow you to lie. So that means when you do this usability testing, you do need to say to the participants, hey, I didn't design this, so you can't hurt my feelings. Go ahead and say whatever you want about it, especially anything negative, frustrating, confusing. We need to hear that so that we can make it better. And then you've got to make sure you've got a good poker face, because if they go, oh, wow, this sucks, I can't figure this out at all, you can't go, you can't show like your own reaction to their reality. You just have to do what I call friendly neutral. Friendly neutral, not overly friendly neutral. So basically, these are some of my suggestions for you. Since you are working in research now, if you think that my new group can help you, it's kind of a mastermind and support group where I'm kind of giving people group coaching. It's free for now, but it will be paid. But I'm trying to make it cost a very reasonable number with some discounts for people in other currencies. So cxcc.to/support-group could be something for you, but otherwise, reach out if you think there's more that I can do to help you in some way. There's also my private coaching that some people find delicious and nutritious. All right, let's take a look at the next question. We actually have 3 more. So if you want to ask a question, go ahead and drop it in either the YouTube chat, because we're not on LinkedIn today, or you can go to deltacx.com/links and you can ask anonymously, which should come into what? Hey, a question has come in. And oh my God, I'm writing an article about it now. Y'all, we're so on the same wavelength. Aw, I love y'all. All right, so let's get the question up on the board that happens to be the next one, because I do these in the order in which they come in. Unless you are a mid-level or higher Patreon, then you can ask them in our special Discord channel and you get priority treatment. You're in first class, baby. All right. This one says, how do you know when your concept is ready to be tested? Like, I get the idea that it's better to test how soon and often as possible, but I guess you still need to get to a point where you've checked that the concept you have is good based on common sense and good practices. Like, first you need to iterate your concept until you think you have something good and then test it to find where it's not good. Or would it be better to take some versions of the concept that just feel okay and get feedback on that? It depends. So, to me, I would say I feel like I want to test something when I start asking myself, is this going in the right direction? Or if I've designed a lot of it, has this gone in the right direction? But to me, because I'm usually working in Acture and I'm usually working in realistic prototypes, I usually want to have designed enough so that people can do at least part of a realistic task in my prototype. It doesn't make sense for me to show people a wireframe or a sketch or a screen and go, well, imagine you could click here, then you could do this. Would that work for you? Oh, boo, super flawed testing. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, that's fine. No. So that's why I love realistic prototyping. And by realistic, I don't mean pretty with branding. I mean interactively realistic. So to me, a great time to test is going to be when you or other people on your team start wondering, are we going in the right direction? And so sometimes I will take one idea to testing to see if that's going in the right direction. Sometimes I've made 2 ideas that I feel kind of equally good about, and I wonder what are their strengths and their weaknesses in the eyes of the user, because I might guess what I think is good about them, but I could be wrong, and that's fine. I want to be proven wrong because then I can be better. So, typically, in order to keep this moving fast, and especially if our workplace has the budget and the tools, I will typically try to do some unmoderated, quick usability studies with 5, 8, 10, 12 people, depending upon our target audience and our behavioral typologies or user profiles or personas, and try to get it in front of people in a very short amount of time. Quickly watch those videos and go, aha, okay, here's what works about this idea. Here's what works about this idea. Now let's bring them together, make a third idea, build that out a little bit more, and if I have time and budget, maybe test that one again. So some of this is going to depend on time, budget, tools, because we do give people incentives, unless it's unethical for whatever business you're in. We do give people some money to do this testing, even if it's $15 or $20 or $50 or whatever you're giving. You got to give them something, unless it's unethical for you to give them something, but usually it is ethical. And they're really helping you out. So it's great if you can get, to me, that's what iterative design is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about, let's workshop something and guess and build it and put it out to the public and then see what's wrong with it and then try to fix it. That's what some people think iterative design is, and I disagree. To me, the best iterative design is to be going through this looping and cycling of iterations and testing and improving before engineering codes it. Because once engineering codes it, it feels very final. People fall in love with it, and it can be very hard later to say, oh, by the way, this tested really badly, or just from time to time, because it's not sponsored. So check in with me some other time and find out who I'm into. Hopefully that helps. Let's take a look at some of the next questions we have, since we have a little bit more time. Oh, this was a really interesting question that came in today. And thank you so much to everybody who's asking these really, really interesting questions. I'm always so proud of all of you. So let's take a look at this question. Okay. This one says, in your opinion, when does it make sense to bring something innovative into UX? I'm seeing the word innovation come up a lot on LinkedIn and other social medias. Ooh, well, my first question is to the people who are watching live today, knowing that we have a very short delay. I want you to tell me when I say innovation to you, can you think of something innovative? Can you think of a company that you believe innovates? And not just the company, but like what's the product or service that you believe was slightly innovative or highly innovative? So, and while you put that up, it's not going to come up on the screen. It'll come up in the YouTube chat and I'll read it out loud. But let me know what you think of when I say an innovative experience, product, service. Can you think of anything? Anything jump to mind when I talk about uh, innovative? Let me refresh just in case people are typing stuff and I'm not seeing it. Nobody's saying anything. Is it that nobody can think of something innovative? Come on, it says there's 8 of you watching right now because we're not live on LinkedIn where we usually get more people too. But 8 of you on YouTube right now. Really? Nothing? Nothing innovative? Come on. But that might be the case. And so let's talk about innovation a little bit. Definitions of innovation are quite different. It used to mean one clear thing, and now it's one of those words that got a little fuzzy and muddy as everybody wanted to make it a cool buzzword. Like empathy used to have a very specific definition. Now it's gotten all fuzzy and muddy because we hope it means something else. Oh, hi, Karen. Karen says, I'm studying blockchain, which I find innovative. Okay. Brandon says, something highly technical. Okay, Karen says blockchain. That makes sense. Anybody else? I'm open to still hearing any other things we think are innovative while I go through this answer. Now, I like to break words down into where they came from. And innovative comes from Latin nova, which is new. If you speak a little Spanish or a little Italian, you know, wow, that kind of looks like the word new. Oh, Ana Lucia. Oh, hey, it's Elijah. Yay. Brandon says immersion museums. That's neat. Yeah, Elijah, can you think of something? I mean, you would know better than anybody. Ana Lucia says, to be honest, the first thing came to my mind was the dematerialized voting books we had in the European elections. No more notebooks. They check us in with our citizen card. Okay, I didn't vote because I can't vote here yet, but that sounds interesting. So cool. If that was innovative, very cool. Elijah says, I definitely feel like working with XR is very innovative, specifically the use cases and implementations. Right. So these sound innovative. And when you think about a typical UX project, when you think about many of the things that we research and design in our everyday jobs, they might not be innovative. And my message to you is that's okay. Are you getting the basics right? Is it usable? Are you using human-centered design? Are you involving target audiences and users in your process where you're researching with them and testing with them? I am less hung up about innovation. Nearly every company is saying innovation, we're innovative, innovation, 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 innovative. And I would say, what have you innovated? And usually they either can't think of anything. Sorry, I'm stirring up my protein shake if you hear weird noises. They either can't think of anything or they say like, "Yeah, we set up a new way to do this thing." And I go, "Yeah, but that's existed before. That isn't truly innovative. It might be the first time you've offered it, but it's been out there." Like it's when Apple says like, "Oh my God, we have the most innovative thing ever. You can now put widgets on your home screen." And everybody with an Android phone was like, yeah, welcome to 2009. So, there are companies like to say innovative and innovation, and then they're not really innovating. If it isn't an invention, if it isn't truly new, if it isn't never before seen, it might not be innovative. And you know what? That's okay. Very few of us will innovate. Most of us will just make fresh things based on other ideas that are out there or ideas that we come up with that are based on something else. I once did a project at Macy's that people were like, whoa, that's so innovative. I kind of stole the idea from Disney. So I was just reusing something else, but Macy's hadn't thought of it. So they thought it was super innovative. But let's just say maybe it was fresh for Macy's, but it wasn't truly an innovation because it exists somewhere else. Elijah says, hope you've been well. Glad to see you're still sharing awesome insights. Yeah, why not? At least on Tuesdays. Ana Lucia says, the dematerialized voting books allowed us to vote from anywhere, not just where we're registered. This was incredible. Oh, that is good. I think my husband still had to go to the community hall and do it the old-fashioned way. So yeah, no excuse not to vote. I'd love to see more of that, especially in America. So when does it make sense? So going back to the question, when does it make sense to bring something innovative in UX? When innovation occurs to you naturally, when existing solutions aren't enough and you have to invent something we've never seen before, we've never done before, and that isn't out there somewhere else. Otherwise, if you say to yourself, okay, it's Tuesday, 18th of June, 2024, and today I have to innovate. Well, what does that look like? How are you going to get there? What are you doing? What problem are you solving? How much do you know about it? And so I think that we put too much pressure on ourselves and our teams to innovate. What is that? What is that? Many of us couldn't even think of a company that is innovating. I mean, to me, because Android does a lot of things before Apple, I think of Android as innovating because they tend to be the first with technologies and interesting things. I saw they just sent something to my phone, which is kind of AI based, so I'm a little nervous, but and I saw it on a commercial where people were having a video call, and the girl says to the guy, "Did anyone see this commercial?" The girl says to the guy, "Where are you?" And the guy goes, "I don't know," which is weird because you'd think he'd have Google Maps. But basically, the girl like presses the AI button, and the Google AI recognizes where the guy is because of all the Google Map and Street View data that they have, and it says, "Oh, your friend is over here." And I was like, "That's really cute. That might be really great for an old person who's like, I don't know where I am," and you're FaceTiming with them. Well, that'd be Apple, but you're in a video call with them. Ana Lucia says we still had to go to the voting halls, but we could be in the other side of the country and vote in a different voting hall. Elijah says, yeah, it's more what the situation calls for. Maybe an old solution works better. Maybe you need something new. Yeah, so when should you innovate in UX? Whenever innovation makes sense. So it won't always be innovative. Sometimes it will just be like people say, "Oh, we're the Uber of something else." Okay, then you're not necessarily innovating because you're just taking Uber's model and applying it to something else. You're not inventing something new, nova, never before seen. It's not an invention. It's just a superimposition of one thing somewhere else, like I did at Macy's by saying, "Hey, Disney does this thing. What if Macy's did a variation of it?" And that's fine. Those are still fresh and interesting ideas, and we can propose those. But I wouldn't necessarily say that's innovation because Macy's can't come out and say we invented this. No, Disney invented it. Well, Paul Dietz invented it, but that's another story. What was that, episode 37? Or I don't remember. Old stuff. Okay, we've got some more questions, and then we'll need to wrap up for today. But remember, I'm here just about every Tuesday. So if you would like to get your questions answered, the questions are coming in. Okay, now we've got two more questions. And so, yeah, I've got my system set up to work really well now, except today I could only, unfortunately, stream to YouTube. LinkedIn's not working today, so At least I'm here. Yeah, and don't forget our soft launch of our new mastermind and group coaching group. If you want to check it out, cxcc.to/support group. And meanwhile, I'm going to queue up the next question, which looks like this. Hi, could you please help me in understanding the difference between a finding and an insight? Additionally, how can I assess and prioritize those as well as estimate their impact on a project or company? It's like you're reading my mind because I'm in the middle of writing that article, which means that will soon be one of my articles. And see, the findings fire hose, because I dictate into Otter when I walk my dog. That's how I write a lot of my stuff. And so I am working right now literally on an article and on what will be a webinar about findings versus insights versus actionable suggestions. But I really love your idea to also bring in assess, let me write this down, assess and prioritize and estimate impact on project or company. Yeah, and I feel like these are great questions, and so let's talk about this a little bit. Even though I will have a separate webinar on this, and we do have another question I want to squeeze in before we end today, but we've got about 14 minutes. So we've got a little bit of time. Oh, prioritization matrix. Yeah, hypothetically, could be prioritization matrix. And so for prioritization, sometimes people ask me as the researcher, as part of the documentation and artifacts and reporting, to give a list of pain points or insights and prioritize those. This is your sense of a priority, and it might not match the rest of your team. So usually I say, well, look, these are my senses of the priority based on the data gathered in the research. You might see the prioritization differently. I suggest a prioritization exercise with the cross-functional team. That's in both my Customers Know You Suck book, and a variation of that is in Larry's Disruptive Research. So prioritization matrix all over the place. You can't get away from it. Yes, it's in Larry's book as well, Ana Lucia. So what's the difference between a finding and an insight? This is the way I've been explaining it to people and the way it's coming up in my article. A finding is the data. Hey, I saw people having trouble finding where to get to the next step. Hey, 75% of people who took our survey answered this question this way. Hey, when I asked people this question, 3 of them said this, 4 of them said this, 2 of them felt this. Now, I call this the findings fire hose, because what happens is when we deliver findings to our teammates or client or stakeholders, very often people feel overwhelmed. They go, okay, so 2 people said this and 3 people thought this and 4 people felt this. So what? What do we do? And so the insights, to me, are the key takeaway for that particular research goal or question. So, for example, instead of giving people the fire hose of 2 people said this, 4 people felt this, 3 people wanted this, what's really going on here? If you had 15 seconds to explain to an important stakeholder what's going on here, what would you say? You probably wouldn't list all the things you heard and go, you figure it out, good luck, see ya. You'd probably want to give them some meaningful nugget about what you found. You might say, although all of the testing participants were able to complete the task, because the finding might be everybody completed the task. But wait a minute, you've got more information, you've got more insight into this. What is the key takeaway from that? Although everybody was able to complete the task, nearly everybody had frustration, confusion, dead ends, error messages, trouble, blockers, knowledge stuff. Now, wait a minute. Now, the story here isn't everybody made it through the task. there's a different story here. So the finding could be, did everybody get through the task? Yep, everybody got through the task. But wait a minute. The key takeaway here is really that this task is highly problematic. The usability might be poor. The wording might not make sense. Maybe the user flow is out of order. So the insight is, this is the key takeaway. And I tell people, you don't have to give everybody all of the findings. You can make that data available separately if people ask for it. Sometimes people say to me, ooh, can I see your Miro board with all of your notes, which is essentially all of our findings? Okay, you can go look at that if you want. I'm not going to withhold it, but it's not going to be one of my key deliverables because it's overwhelming. The insight is the key takeaway for that particular question or task or research goal, or however you want to put it. Then you have the actionable suggestions. Let's say your insight is, although everybody eventually completed the task, 80%, 90%, everybody, whatever it might have been, struggled with the task, went in the wrong direction, had trouble finding the right button, didn't know some information we required from them, whatever it is. Without the actionable suggestion, you've left it to them to figure out, well, what do we do? You could end up with a team that says, sounds fine to me. They made it through the task, right? Probably not that bad. But this is your opportunity to really act as a consultant, as a trusted partner, and say, although everybody made it through the task eventually, due to the high percentage of frustration, confusion, disappointment, distraction, knowledge problems, cognitive load, manual intensity, whatever it was that you saw, we highly recommend that, and again, this is where you can be broad, we highly recommend that the user flow be rethought. We highly recommend changes to the design of the screens. Now, you don't have to draw the screens. If you're not the designer, don't design for the designer. That's disempowering. But you can give the designer some clues about what went wrong and what was so problematic for people so that now they have problems to solve. We want to set designers up to understand the problem so they can solve it. So I would say that is some of the difference, in my opinion, between findings, insights, and actionable suggestions. People who are here live, did that make sense? Any follow-up questions? And then for the rest of the question, how can I assess and prioritize those and their impact on a project or company? Some of that is hard to predict. And so again, you can say, ooh, I think this is a top priority. We should really be working on this first. Or out of all the opportunities I heard about, I think these are the two most important opportunities. But the problem is we might not have all the information. We might not know what's most important to the company or the team or the project. Sometimes somebody who knows that doesn't share it with us. So if someone asks you to estimate the impact of something, you can try. And one way that you can do that is with my impact map. But this would require extra digging. The extra digging would be, now that I've gotten a sense of what the problem is, and especially if this is something that is currently available to our users or live to the public, can I tie this to any losses or risk or waste that we're experiencing? So for example, if you're dealing with, why aren't people signing up enough, conversion rate stuff, then you'd be able to find out how much money are we losing, or how many customers are we losing, and be able to say, now I can estimate some of that impact. If we fix this, maybe we can get 5% more people signing up. Or it's okay to be conservative. Not everything has to be, it'll be 70% better. Sometimes a company, at Macy's, they jumped at 1% because they were dealing in hundreds of millions of dollars. So 1% was great. So how do you assess and prioritize those? That goes with having a bit of a consultant mindset, where you're now taking a strategic approach to the things that you have found. These are the things that I tend to expect from senior, lead, principal, higher level people, and I don't necessarily expect from mid-level, junior, intern, apprentice people. So it depends what level you are at. But I would say find out what your teammates expect from you, because if they're going to go and prioritize these things themselves, then maybe you putting a priority on these isn't that important. Though in your report, you can certainly point out any problem or opportunity that you believe is very important or very severe. So again, it's hard for me to comment on this because I feel like there's more moving pieces than I know about. I think we would need to learn a little bit more about what your team expects from you versus what they're then going to go and do with the insights and takeaways and suggestions that you make. Because it's hard for a researcher to estimate the impact on a project or a company of something being created, fixed, or improved in a way that you don't yet know that it will be created, fixed, or improved. So you could say, hey, I think if we fix this, we could make 5% more sales. Okay, but what if they don't do it the way you're thinking? You could get less sales. So I think it's hard for researchers um, to estimate that type of impact because we often don't have enough information about some of the root causes. We can go digging in our research for some of these things. We might need to ask some internal people some additional information to try to determine some of the root causes and the percentages and the numbers and the quant data. But honestly, it's very hard for us to estimate what a possible change that we're still being kind of broad and vague about might do. Elijah says, I can attest to this. I've used a lot of this strategy in my own job when I have to help determine what cases to tackle first and what features to focus on for our simulations. Okay, great. Yeah, so again, I think there's nothing wrong with you trying to give actionable suggestions, maybe mention which things seem most severe or low-hanging fruit, or more likely to achieve some business goals, or more likely to produce more customer satisfaction, but it would be very hard to specifically estimate impact because it's just so unknown, and it's so many factors you're not going to be responsible for. All right, we've got one question, and then that is it for today. We'll be out of time. If you send a question after this one, I'm going to get to it next Tuesday from my vacation. Woo! Okay, so let's make sure I'm looking at the YouTube chat room, and let's put up our last question with, again, thanks to everybody for hanging out today. And let's see what this one says. Hi. I am doing usability testing at my company, and the users are workers there, so they're used to talking to each other quite informally. And I'm finding that when I do usability testing with them, it's quite alienating. The whole thing at the beginning of explaining stuff like, we're testing the idea, not you. This is what a prototype is, some stuff won't work. Please think out loud. So, by quick side note, I don't say we're testing the idea, not you, because I think what people's brains hear is we're testing you. So I don't say that. I talked for a few minutes, and some of them are confused about this intro. Any suggestions? Yeah, cut the intro. It sounds like you're probably saying too much. If you've ever seen any of my intros, I try to keep them short. And I'm not looking at one right now, and I don't think I have one at my desk, do I? Because this is some scrap paper from my last study. No, these are post-task questions. I don't think I have my scrap paper with my intro, so I'll try to do it from memory. But mostly what I try to say is something like this. Hi, I'm Debbie. I'm a lead UX researcher here at our company. Thanks so much for making time to talk with me today. Today's going to be pretty easy. We'll be together for about an hour. I'm going to ask you some questions first. Then I'm going to be watching you using a prototype that we've created. And then I've got some questions after that. I've got this camera set up here. I am going to be recording this, or we're in a Zoom call and I'm recording this. Thanks for signing the consent form that says that I can record this. And if you need a break at any point in time, just let me know and we'll pause. And how about we start out with an easy question? Tell me about some of your day-to-day responsibilities. That's it. So I'm not going to say please think out loud until it's contextual. And typically I do the sandwich version, which is I start with some questions, then I have them do some tasks. That's when I'll tell them to share their screen or open up a certain thing or go to this URL. And that's when I tell them to think out loud. And then I've got the additional questions at the end. So I would keep the introduction very short. I don't give away the purpose of the study. I don't tell them please think out loud because they're not at that point yet. We're going to start with some conversation, and I probably have some easy early questions about their job role or what types of tools they use or what their process looks like or where it's going wrong. So feel free to use a much shorter intro, especially if you find the intro is confusing. So did that help that person? Oh, Gong says we're just about out of time. I hope that was a help. Um, yeah, if you're talking for a few minutes, it's probably too long. Typically, when I am doing these, I try to not talk for more than a minute. We can go back and check the video, but I feel like when I introduced myself and I said all the usual things, it was probably 1 minute. And there was nothing in there that they had to think too hard about because it was mostly, hi, this is who I am. We're going to spend some time together today. This is being recorded. Thanks for signing the consent form. Um, uh, if you need a pause, if you need a break, we'll take a pause. And let's start with some easy questions. So that's usually the way I intro it. And then once we're doing the tasks, I'll say, okay, please share your screen. I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is a prototype. Please remember it's confidential and please think out loud. Another thing you can do is you can take that part of your script and you can copy and paste it and put it in the chat if you're in a video call. And that way people can look at it and read it and refer to it and go, okay, think out loud. And remember, if they're not thinking out loud, which many of them stop doing at some point, it's your job to say, hey, please, oops, we got a little quiet there. Please think out loud. Or sometimes I'll joke, hey, I can't read your mind today. Hey, can you please think out loud so I know what you're thinking as you're moving around this prototype? So, yeah, try that. All right. So I think I'm gonna flame us out of here. And tomorrow I hope we'll have a webinar. I'm gonna need to send a support ticket in to see why we couldn't stream to LinkedIn today. If I can get that fixed by tomorrow, otherwise I will reschedule tomorrow's webinar. But I'm super excited about it, and I want to make sure it goes live on LinkedIn because tomorrow, if it happens, if it doesn't get rescheduled, I'm going to be reading and sharing with you my article on how the democratization of our jobs makes it easier for AI to take our jobs. It's a tough conversation that I think we need to have and say out loud. I definitely want to make sure that streams to LinkedIn and not just YouTube. So, worst case scenario, it'll have to be rescheduled, but hopefully I can get support to tell me why we couldn't stream to LinkedIn today. So thanks to everybody for joining. Sorry again for being late, but thanks for sending in so many great questions. And again, if anything comes in after hours, I will save it for next week. But other than that, everybody have a fantastic Tuesday. And I'm going to click the flame button, but then I'm going to have to manually stop the stream because I manually started it in YouTube. Okay, thanks again, everybody. Bye.